This is Insight. Phone lines are open. Dial 384-2191.
Into the 10 o'clock hour here on this Friday, October 9th. You know that if you are listening to us live, but you may be watching us on Channel 989, your Charter Digital tier with the city channels, as we are on MarshfieldMediaAccess.org as well, because this second Friday of the month, members of Marshfield PD join us here, and I have Travis Sheridan and Travis Esther. Good morning.
Good morning, Jeff.
So, you're here again today. I know I have to ask, any word on the police chief's return?
No word.
No word from anybody in the department, huh? Okay. At this point in time, we're into October. Normally, schools would be much more brisk business than they're doing now with the staggered situation that they have. But you're still out patrolling these areas, watching for activity in those. I mean, you still have the school liaison, right?
Yep, correct. We still have school officers both in the high school and in the middle school. And in the elementary schools, we're still seeing a fair amount of traffic, both prior to school starting in the morning and then, of course, in the afternoon. So you're right, we are in those areas yet still trying to patrol and keep everyone safe and make sure that speeds are low in those 15-mile-per-hour zones just so that our kids can come and go without any problems, whether it's in the morning or in the afternoon.
Are you, as far as you know, using full crossing guard manpower this year? Everybody that was in place in years past is now on patrol?
Yeah, as far as I know. Yep.
Okay. I didn't know if there'd be any reduced need, depending upon the things. Schedules are so up in the air this year, it's hard to know how things are going, but whether or not there'd be any money to be saved there or whether or not they do anything different with those crossing guards. I seem to see them at their usual times and places. Not sure exactly who's coming and going at any given time because I don't follow the schedules of the schools. But they're out there anyway, and you still need to be watching for them. Sometimes because you don't have as many kids walking around, you forget where you're at going through zones. And school buses, too, for that matter, out in the rural areas. At this point now, where do we stand, or what do we know about Halloween?
Not a whole lot, the way it sounds. I understand it's coming up on the agenda for the Common Council meeting on Tuesday, so hopefully we'll have some answers then. We were originally told that the 5th Street closure was potentially still going to happen, so we had prepared for getting some of our auxiliary out there, and I thought that there was going to be barricades, as in years past, to get that shut down for that specific area. But since then, I've heard that hasn't been a definite decision yet, and so I'm hopeful that in conjunction with the trick-or-treating hours, if they're going to set those, some of those decisions will hopefully get made on Tuesday night.
Yeah, that's you need to know a little bit in advance, but yeah, that's a no-win situation, it seems like. If you say no, there'll be huge disappointment if they don't run it. And there'll be those who will say, well, that's irresponsible if you do. So you're in that time here where people are uptight, I guess you might say. And, well, with caseload the way it is here happening across the state, I can't necessarily say that's not a good thing to be vigilant about. Has the department experienced, or can you say, outages because of sickness?
Yeah, I'm not sure if we can say that or not. We've had a couple people out on sicknesses that have been COVID related, and so we've had to work through those and make some adjustments, but so far it's been minimal for us, so we are still navigating through that and hoping that it doesn't get any worse than it has with just a couple people affected so far. So our ability to still provide the same service level to the citizens is the same as what it was before.
Yeah, having anyone in your office who has that, there's a whole set of protocols to go through with all the rest of the people that are now changed the office than the way you do things. And I would imagine yours is no different. So talking with Lieutenant Sheridan and Lieutenant Esser here on today's Inside program, 384-2192. 384-2192 if you'd like to join us live on this second Friday in the month of October here from the WDLB studios, where we give the opportunity for you to talk with members of the Marshfield Police Department about what's going on. So far, things have been fairly, I think, with the lack of people on the road, and I say that, and yet certain times I'm thinking, sure doesn't look like people are staying home. It just depends upon where you are when, I guess. But traffic is down in the evening hours, I would think, quite a bit, where we would normally have a lot of more things going on. Today on the news, a Marshfield man here has still been missing for a long time. And with the hunting season coming about here now, the Sheriff's Department specifically is asking people to be watching for Zach Vasa. Since June 13th, he's been missing. Any interdepartmental memos or anything that you guys have shared with Wood County as to what kind of, how would I say, all points bulletin or lookout that you're doing for your department on this?
Not specifically right now. Both departments have been actively involved in that investigation from the beginning and really working hard to find Zach. And at this point in time, we're really looking for help from, like you said, people out in the community and people that are going to be heading out to the woods. I think you saw in both our Facebook posting and Wood County Sheriff's Departments as well that Zach was thought to last be in the rural Wood County area around that Lindsay area, and so we're really asking specifically for those hunters and people that are going to be going out, even if you're going out walking your dog or taking a hike or going out to look at the leaves or whatever it might be this time of year. A lot of people are out in the woods enjoying that, and we're just hopeful that somebody will come across something that can lead us in a direction to find Zach.
It sounds like it's pretty cool then as far as the investigation is concerned. There's not a whole lot more to be followed up upon.
Yeah, Wood County Sheriff's Department took over that investigation a while ago once we've kind of moved from knowing that Zach was last in Marshfield, but then later finding out that he was last outside of the city of Marshfield. So I don't know specifically if the Sheriff's Department has anything new on that or not. But like I said, with the information going out there, we're just hopeful that somebody will give us a break in a certain direction for us to be able to locate him.
That's been ongoing since June. There have been some leads that have proven to be not followed up upon or unfruitful or whatever, that didn't lead to what you thought it may have been at one time or another. But at this point, is this pretty much all you can do, is to ask for the public's help?
Well, I think we always want the public's help, but from what I'm gathering, yes, we're at the point where we're looking for the public's help. I don't know if the Sheriff's Department has more information than I would about that, because we're not as actively involved in it anymore. So they would best be able to answer that question. But I would just stress that if anybody does come across anything suspicious in the woods, like we were talking about earlier, that they don't tamper with anything that they find, and that either they remain there and use a cell phone to contact authorities from their specific location, or if they have somebody with them to send somebody out to make a phone call while they maintain the integrity of that area and scene wherever they think they found something suspicious, and then let us know, or the Sheriff's Department specifically know. And I know that Investigative Sergeant Scott Goldberg has been working that case very hard for the last few months, and he would be the point of contact. But certainly just calling the Wood County Dispatch Center if you see anything suspicious, even if you think that it's nothing, we would rather, and they would rather, look into it to make sure for the benefit of Zach's family.
Right. Talking about the case of Zach Vasa, missing since June 13th here, with members of the Marshfield Police Department, was because he was from Marshfield, you were initially involved or in the initial search and case as it became available to you here, and now we're asking through the Sheriff's Department for people and hunters and anybody in the woods this time of the year. Activities will pick up, I think, out there, and just looking for anything that's disturbed or whatever that might lead to something else, I guess. It'd be nice if you could find, well, I don't know if that'd be nice to find him or not. I mean, nice to find him alive, but whatever the situation may be. 384-2192, 384-2192 here on today's Insight program, talking with members of Marshfield PD. We will continue with your calls, if you would so choose, in just a moment. WDLB's Insight program, the second Friday in the month of October. You know that if you're listening live. You could be watching us on marshfieldmediaaccess.org or Channel 989 on your Charter Digital tier. Throughout the month of October, this program will be rotating as we visit once a month with members of Marshfield Police Department, and they avail themselves to your questions as well. So give us a call, 384-2192 here. We talked a little bit about trick-or-treating hours, which is yet to be determined. We talked a little bit about the schools and their schedules and still enforcing everything, including the crossing guards at full force here yet in the area, so be aware of that. We talked a little bit about whether the pandemic has affected department schedules, and from time to time it is, but so far nothing that you haven't been able to handle anyway. This time of the year, with winter coming, any parking regulations or things like that the department will have to deal with, or do things change from summer to winter?
Yep, they do change. November 1st, we'll enact our overnight parking ordinance, so no overnight parking between November 1st and April 30th. And what that means is 2:30 a.m. to 6 a.m., so it's just that 3.5-hour window there for no overnight parking. Unless the street department calls a snow emergency, or somebody within the city calls a snow emergency, then there's no overnight parking and no on-city street parking in any of those nighttime hours, or even during the daytime hours as far as that goes. But of course there's some lenience in the downtown areas where people need to park to access businesses and apartments and things like that. But we do our best to work with the street department to work around and be flexible for citizens that need to still get things done during the day. And for the most part, the street department's doing a lot of those cleanups in the nighttime hours anyway, so we just try to get the streets cleaned off with vehicles for them prior to them starting their job of getting everything cleaned off for everyone.
Now, the snow emergencies are generally set, each one individually, the hours of. They'll say starting at 6 p.m. tonight, or so you have to be aware it's not a set time necessarily, but you do have to be aware of each individual time period, so that depending upon how they're running their shifts and how much manpower they can do at a certain time, that you stay off of the street. What is your responsibility as a department then? Do you cite, or do you tow, or what do you do in those situations?
I think we generally try to help them clear cars that are on the road just by contacting the owner or having them move. If there's something that needs to be plowed around, then the last resort is generally to tow the vehicle. But first and foremost, we by just having that enforcement throughout the year, and then people are aware of it once it starts happening. Most of the time we don't have to do very much with moving or helping move cars, and people are pretty compliant with that, especially during snow emergencies. But as a last resort, sometimes we have had to have vehicles removed if we couldn't get a hold of someone.
Does the city have a impound lot, or is that something you work with private businesses on?
Generally, they just go to the wrecker service to their yard. We do have a private impound facility, but it's very small, and it's just for things that we use for investigative purposes usually.
How can you release somebody? If there's a hold on that vehicle, And is there such a thing? I mean, if you take my vehicle, I can't just go down with my spare set of keys, get in it, and drive it away. There's generally some fine that has to be paid or forfeiture, first of all. So how do you work with local?
They just hold them in their yard, and then the business requires payment upon release of the vehicle for their tow service fees.
So that goes to you pay the business.
Yes.
For any forfeitures.
Yes.
And that's mainly just tow fees.
Right.
Okay, because there might have been a ordinance violation that also went along with that, and that will probably be mailed.
If you get a parking ticket, sometimes the copy of that's left on the vehicle, and that would be for the city of Marshfield. But otherwise, the tow service fee is just direct through the private business.
Okay, so it's mostly just a tow fee that will allow you to get your vehicle back from the individual places. Do you know off the top of your head how many private tow services the city works with?
Not a specific number, no. There's quite a few of them that we just get called on a rotating basis through our dispatch center.
Is that how it works? They just are on a list of who's up next?
Yeah, they try to keep that fair. They have a list where they try to contact someone if the person doesn't have a specific preference. If they have a specific preference, we use what they would desire.
Now, normally, like if I get into a fender bender and I can't drive away, then you'd ask me, first of all, if there's any specific company I would like to use.
Correct.
Because that's who I'm going to wind up paying to have my insurance company will pay to have my car towed. But if not, then it'll just be the next one in rotation.
Correct.
Okay. Talking with members of Marshfield PD here about their business at hand as it works on a daily basis here. Maybe you want to know. 384-2192. Have you ever been curious? 384-2192. Talking with Lieutenant Sheridan and also Lieutenant S. are here today on the program as we make our way through the month of October. Now, with this being the fall season, are there any other... We talked about parking restrictions other than just what would normally be from November until April, but mainly lots are all open. And has there been any problem with construction? I mean, we've had several areas around the city, it seems like, that have been done this summer, but parking restrictions or what is your thoughts on, keeping speeds down around that? How hard do you enforce that? You always hear about it on the state patrol, when you're out there, because guys get killed when you're doing 60, 70 miles an hour. It doesn't take much. You don't need to get right up to the vehicle to be hit specifically. Even the wind that close will knock you down and injure you. But do you monitor construction speeds in the city?
Yeah, we do, and specifically, I think right now South Central Avenue is getting a project done on the south end, and we've been asked specifically if they've noticed some violations down there to come help enforce a little bit more, but otherwise, officers are aware of it, and they will also sit in some of those construction zones at times to try to just monitor traffic and speeds and things like that to make sure everyone stays safe. So.
I think what we've experienced probably more of over the years is not necessarily even the speed, because like you said, we are in the city here, so speeds aren't generally the concern as much as people just violating the sign in general. So when the street department puts up a sign of road closed, or if it's a different private entity doing the construction, they put up their road closed signs, and people go past those signs anyways and then create issues for the construction, obviously, to get completed when they're driving through there. And so they have to be constantly watching their backs, or if they're running machinery and trying to back up into the lane that's supposed to be closed, and then people are driving through it. I think that obviously that causes them some safety concerns and some frustration, and so we've been called upon probably more frequently, I think, to address those signs, just to get compliance from people to not violate those and go through and cause that extra stress and frustration and havoc and safety concern for the construction crews.
I guess for some reason when we see a road closed sign, we go, is it really?
All right. Yep.
And so I can see pavement, can't I just drive around the signs and come out the other instead of having to go way around the block? And then you'll see the picture of the minivan up to its axles in mud somewhere.
Yeah. Yep.
Whoops. I guess that was a road closed sign. It meant it. So that's one of those things where you get called to as well, going shake your head and think, believe the sign is what most people would say. Have you been putting out the speed zone signs? I know you have a little mobile trailer that has a flashing sign on it of speed. And from what I understand, can people request that to be put in neighborhoods?
Yeah, they can, and we occasionally put them in locations where there's a high need or as a request. And actually now I think we more have these more smaller mobile ones that mount right to the street signs that are along the roadway instead of the trailer that's parked somewhere. They just have battery packs and can be interchanged at times if they go out. And then they're left in certain locations upon need for durations of time. We've seen them on Central occasionally lately, in Becker and some of the higher traffic areas generally.
Yeah, I suppose with school zones that would be a place to put one. A reminder once again here in those areas where, because you don't see the amount of kids that you used to. Some of them are virtual school depending upon their shift. So people forget about those kind of things. But people can request a patrol in their area, and you'll determine what that means, whether or not somebody has to actually be there or whether it's sufficient to put up a sign.
Yeah, correct. We get extra patrol requests very frequently through Facebook, through phone calls, or people just wanting to have patrol for lots of various reasons, and some of them speed or vehicles. And so we just kind of monitor on a case-by-case basis what's the best way to serve that. If that's just officers going through the area or being parked in that area on certain specific times, or maybe a speed sign or something like that. We get lots of tips, and we operate a lot off of those tips, and so we're thankful for the community's help and support and things like that.
Talking with Lieutenant Sheridan, Lieutenant Esser here on today's Insight program, 384-2192. If you'd like to join in, 384-2192. Have my back to the phone here as I say that, and I'm thinking, well, I don't know if I'd see it if somebody called. So give us a call and talk about business at hand here and how your Marshfield PD works. We're taking your calls this second Friday of the month. WDLB's Insight program, the second Friday in the month of October, coming to you live on AM 1450 or in rebroadcast video at channel 989 on your Spectrum digital tier, or at marshfieldmediaaccess.org. There's a lot of things involved with the city of Marshfield going on that's available on their channels, and their access to you to help create programming. And if you see something going on or would like to share an event that you have or are taking part in or that's going on, they will help you to get that recorded, and they can use it on their rotation of things on Spectrum 989 and other channels as well. So if you have something going on, and they're so few and infrequent now in the pandemic time here, that they would really be interested in having you find something for them to show on their channels in rotation as well. This Friday, talking with members of Marshfield Police Department here, Lieutenant Sheridan, Lieutenant Esser in studio with us. Coming up here later on this month, I think it's Saturday the 24th, you have what's called a drug take-back program going on. Tell me about what happens there.
Well, that's an opportunity. Of course, I think a lot of people have heard that it's a terrible idea to flush prescription drugs down the toilet or sink or wherever and have that pollute our groundwater. So throughout the year, we have these drug take-back events, and this year all across Wood County, really. So Wisconsin Rapids Police Department, Pittsville, Port Edwards, ourselves, and even Rome in Adams County are all going to be participating in that on Saturday the 24th. Our specific hours here in Marshfield are 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. and the location for you to drop off prescription drugs is going to be actually under what used to be the old drive-through of Forward Financial, where the new City Hall is now. We're going to have that opened up so people can just drive right under the overhang there in the drive-through area and basically hand any of their prescription drugs out the window to an officer that'll be there, and we will compile all those and get those taken care of.
Now, this is a special event, just as a reminder. I mean, do you still do that at the department and still have a place for people to do that on a regular basis?
Yes, we do, and that happens on a very regular basis. And not only the prescription drugs will we take in and put in a bin at the police department, but we also are a sharps collection location as well. So if people have sharps that they want to get rid of, we can dispose of those safely too.
So this is coming up on Saturday, the 24th. It's a special event, kind of a reminder event, because as we say here in the city, you can drop them off anytime that the law enforcement building is open. And the lobby is where you can drop off used or unused prescription drugs. And also sharps are available to be dropped off coming up on Saturday, the 24th, 10 until 2. At the drive-up area behind City Hall. That's on Chestnut and what?
6th.
Yeah. And I always lose my numbers there. I'm counting from the bank. Let's see, that'd be 6th and Chestnut. So it's coming up Saturday, the 24th. What do they do with those, as far as you know? I mean, are they crushed and burned, or what do they?
Yeah. So what happens is we do this event around this time specifically because we have been contacted or know that a semi will be coming for pickup up by Wausau in the coming week or two here, and so we're going to gather as much of this stuff as we can to then drive that up there and get it into that large semi truck. They then take it to an incinerator, and all of that gets burned.
That's when you say semi truck, I think of how much unused prescription is just floating around.
It's amazing just what we have. I mean, at the police department, we have, if you remember those old blue recycling bins that the city used to have out, we have similar types of containers. And around this time of the year, even before this prescription drug take back, we probably have 8 or so of those filled up with prescription medications right now waiting to be disposed of. And after Saturday the 24th, obviously we'll have a great deal more as well. So, and that's just from our agency. So if you think about that across the county and then all the way across the state and country, there's a lot of it. So
I think about the cost of prescriptions, and then I think about how people don't finish them.
Right.
And when you get to feel better, you don't keep taking pain medication if the pain doesn't hurt anymore. At least, hopefully not, because that leads to other problems. But even antibiotics, I finish the whole thing off before you get rid of it. And where do you go with those things? A lot of times people did flush them, and water becomes polluted, and you find when they do chemical tests, like, where in the world did that come from? Everything from estrogen to testosterone to who knows what people are flushing. They're not just prescription pills. I mean, any kind of pills that you may take over the counter or whatever the case may be are of the kind that you can use here. So a special take-back event. Now, you said that the whole county, in this case, is involved. Is this a grant money kind of thing?
I believe it is. I'm not sure which grant that falls under, but I do believe so.
All right, let's go to the phone here. Good morning. You're on the Insight program.
Good morning. I have a question about what to do with old thermometers that still have mercury in them. Any place I ask, everybody doesn't seem to know what to do with them, and I'd like to get rid of them.
That's a great question. We're looking at each other, shaking our heads here as well, because I'm not sure what to do with those either. Certainly our event on the 24th doesn't qualify for something like that. So I'm sorry, but I don't know the answer to that question.
My only suggestion would be when they have clean sweep, either once a year, they'll have it in the northern or southern Wood County. They've been pretty fortunate. Again, that's a grant thing that has to take place, but if you take it to the clean sweep and let them know what's in it, then they will dispose of it. They're more with the hazardous chemicals.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right. Here on AM 1450 WDLB's Insight, 384-2192, 384-2192 here today. On the program, we're talking with Marshfield PD here, Lieutenant Esser, Lieutenant Sheridan in. We were talking about the drug take back, and that's what spurred the call here, coming up Saturday the 24th. I guess I was saying, is this a grant program that all of you get together to do once a year, or is it just an informal program that you put on?
No, it's funded by a grant. I just don't know which one off the top of my head. So, but again, trying to organize and coordinate that pickup with the large truck and everything all at one time is probably the primary reason why we try to stick together and do it in conjunction with one another, so that all of that can be delivered and then taken care of and gone off to the incinerator.
All around the listening area here, Pittsville, they'll be at the police department from 9 to 12. At Wisconsin Rapids Pick and Save, 10 to 2. Fort Edwards Fire Department from 11 to 1. And Rome Police Department in Adams County from 10 until 2. This is coming up on Saturday the 24th, drug take-back event. Probably not going to be allowing or trying not to get people out of their car. Just hand the people what you have, and that through the window of your vehicle, and there'll be masked up people ready to take it from you.
Right, that's the idea. Pretty much a drive-through event is what we're looking for. So the officers will be out there. They'll be underneath that roofed area on the north side of City Hall, and all people have to do is drive their car right under, like they may have used to done when the drive-through for the bank was actually there, hand their stuff off to the officer, and we'll take care of it from there.
All right, talking with Lieutenant Esser and Lieutenant Sheridan here on today's Insight program for Marshfield PD. You can join us, 384-2192, 384-2192. WDLB's Insight program here for a Friday in October, second Friday of the month here, and we have members of Marshfield PD availing themselves to you and I for concerns or questions about the business of law enforcement here in the Marshfield area. So give us a call, 384-2192, 384-2191 might even be better here when Julie can let me know there's somebody on the line. Talking with Lieutenant Sheridan and Lieutenant Esser, we've talked about, a wide variety of things here. We're looking for Sac Vasa in the woods now that more people are going out there. We talked about Halloween, and whether or not it's going to be held is still, in the traditional form anyway, is still up in the air yet. We talked about the kids in school and school zones and things like that. So if you have any questions, you're still available to you here at 384-2191, 384-2192, and send the calls in here and talk to us. We talked recently about the Drug Take Back event, which is coming up on Saturday the 24th at various departments around central Wisconsin, including at Marshfield, where they will be doing that at City Hall at the drive-up on the backside of City Hall. They'll be able to take your unused prescriptions and sharps as well. Just be very careful with them, have them packed properly, and tell them what it is in there if you can, and they will be able to dispose of those in a proper manner here for you. So as the business of the city goes along this time of the year, we talked earlier this month with members, and we will be talking throughout the month on the Insight program with members of the Personal Development Center, PDC. It is Domestic Abuse Awareness Month, and we have talked about this being a issue where people are in close proximity, safer at home, and generally in that area now where abuse like that could be on the rise and could occur more often here. And we're no different than anywhere else when it comes to domestic affairs, shall we say. So have you noticed any difference, or are you working with PDC at all or this month in any kind of awareness program, or have they been working with you, or have you thought about this being that month? Anything brought up to officers about this kind of thing?
We have for quite some time worked with PDC, so we've already got a well-established relationship with them throughout the years. They've frequently come to our police department to share, what they have to offer for services, what kind of numbers that they're seeing, and just that overall information sharing amongst departments is very helpful for us. So we're in contact with them, I don't want to say frequently, but enough that we have a great working relationship. Nothing that I know of that has been brought forward by them or from us over to them specifically about this particular month in general. And I think it's a little bit early for us. I know I've been pondering this question as well to know if or if we have the data to show that there's been an increase in the domestic abuse category. I know that I've heard, and I haven't seen exact statistics, but nationally that there's been an increase, like you said, because of COVID and everybody being cooped up, that there's been increases in things like child abuse and domestic abuse. And I don't doubt that. I just don't know that we have the numbers to support that exactly, or that we know what those numbers are quite yet.
It occurs to me as I listen to you talk, your profession has, I don't know if it's changed or if it's always been there, but it's more to the forefront now. Mental health and mental illness, dealing with people who are, I don't know how to say it, not in right mind or right thinking at times, and not approaching that with force is now, I hate to say it, but sensitivity training, for lack of a better term, amongst law enforcement is a big wave now, and probably for good reason. I mean, your frequent flyers, the ones you have regular contact with, and it's usually not that they're super criminals. Those guys will run. These guys will come right toward you, and they're not afraid because they don't see any problem. And that part of your job has changed, I would think, a little bit. Can you talk to that aspect even here in the city?
Yeah, and that you're right in that has occurred even here in Marshfield, and I think we increasingly see more people with mental illness, and who do citizens call when there's issues that evolve from that, and we're generally that first phone call, especially when it's a situation that's gotten out of control. So our training has definitely changed, and had been a number of years ago already. I think we're hearing more about it now just because of the landscape and what's going on around the nation, but we've been sending officers to what's called crisis intervention training for a number of years already. In fact, we had 2 officers in that training this week, so they're finishing up today with their certification of specifically learning about dealing with people who are emotionally disturbed or have mental illness, and better ways for us to handle that without escalating that situation that differ from what used to have maybe been more traditional police tactics, and like you said, maybe moving to force earlier on without completely having an understanding of that person's perception, because usually we're dealing with somebody with some sort of distorted perception due to a mental illness, and we have to try to figure out what that is, and relatively quickly usually, and do our best to use words or gestures or whatever it is, or spacing, to try to minimize that ending in a use of force incident.
There's that saying, "Don't shoot my son, he's autistic." And when you look at how these incidents that are so well publicized now happen, is because people don't follow orders. If you tell me to stop, I stop. You tell me to get down, I get down. People say, "Well, I don't have to do that," or "I know my rights," or whatever the case may be. And the next thing you have non-compliance, and now you're thinking, why? And then you go through all, your training and your checks and say, well, could be this, could be that. I'm watching for this or watching for that. Is he combative, or is he just, and it could be mental situation where they're just not ready to comply with what you've got going on, but they really don't pose a big danger. So do you come at it with force, or do you come at it with compassion, or do you come at it with, and that's decisions that law enforcement have to make nowadays, and with camera phones in everybody's pocket, and there's suddenly a judge and jury in every pocket now. So it's got to be more difficult, and I would imagine you guys talk about that kind of thing either amongst the department or have training on this kind of subject as well.
Yeah, I mean, we do. I think officers, I would say, do a very good job of recognizing, for the most part, those situations where it might be mental illness or emotionally distraught person, and handle that appropriately. And almost all the time that's with compliance, either gained by communication. Very little times does it result in force, and you can see that just because we don't have those stories that you might see elsewhere. And part of that, a lot of it, is probably just due to training and having the ability to get those types of training and have understanding. And so that helps us greatly. We deal with that on a very frequent basis. People might be surprised how often we deal with someone in a mental health crisis. And it's nearly daily, I would say, that we have a situation like that we're dealing with.
Well, if people read the blotter with interest, they used to call that, when they would publish it, the police blotter of the calls that come in that are released to the public, and you look at some of the things that you're dealt with or asked to approach, and it's usually a squabble. Generally, there's not a breakout of a gunfire here that you have to walk into. It's mainly just some kind of a squabble where people are demanding that they take their part, and the other people say, no, that's my part, and you can't take that part. And it's domestic squabbles, a lot of it. And when you become a referee, hopefully not necessarily that you have to apply any force to anyone. So that kind of training, I would imagine, when you hire somebody too, and that's another thing about the enforcement in industry, is that having the right mentality is more important, or as important, than being able to you can teach you the law enforcement part of it, but having the right approach to life is as important as anything else in your industry. Your thoughts?
Yeah, correct. We're looking for character and people that are well-rounded and are calm under pressure and have good communication skills. Those are probably the most important characteristics of a good law enforcement officer. Those other how to do the job tasks are trained. We're looking for that person that has a sound mind and is able to communicate and recognize things and do those types of tasks, and then we'll train the rest of that.
Talking with members of Marshfield Police Department here, 384-2191, 384-2192. We started out talking about Domestic Abuse Awareness Month and domestic situations. I've said to the chiefs and the sheriff before, I said, it seems like your job is traffic or domestic in this level. There's not a lot of armed robberies, and we don't have we're a high crime area where people do those kind of things. If they do, it's usually somebody who knows somebody. It happens within a family, or it happens that I hired a guy and he knew I had something in the shed, and you can usually find out, it's not necessarily just random robberies and burglaries and things like that happen. It's somebody who knows somebody. Occasionally you'll have a rampant thing going on, or people will come in from out of town and just farm through the open cars of the city at night and see what they can find, but that doesn't happen all that often around our area. So we talked about that. I noticed a posting that you had about truancy and curfew. Is that still something that you enforce, and what are the background of that? I mean, what are the hours and what is it?
The hours for curfew differ dependent on the age of the child. And I have a cheat sheet for that. I don't have them all memorized in my head right now, but so those do change depending on how old you are, and we do still enforce that. I think that truancy is a bit problematic right now with the options of virtual learning and the staggered schedules that are occurring and stuff like that. So I know in just brief conversations with the school resource officers that's I don't know what the right word would be. Maybe there's a little extra tolerance around that particular violation right now just because of some of those other things that are occurring during COVID.
Not everybody's sure who's supposed to be where.
yeah, it's a complicated schedule, I think, especially at the high school. So
yeah, so those kind of things. It used to be quite easy. Now you go. We used to say, well, you can't even get to the school now. There's only one door open. Now you're not allowed to come there anyway. Yeah. Period. Just stay away. I mean, when I was young, we had open campus, and we just, all the doors of all the school were open on all sides, and we'd come and go. It was a different world. Not only now do we have security measures that only one door is open, but for nabbing kids or whatever the situation may be, but also now with pandemic, they just don't even want you around there. And there are some people who may think that some of the outbreaks have been caused by return to school again, but there's no official data on that coming out yet, where the high numbers of cases that we have experienced, 3,000 we hit in one day. So that's a new high. And some people could say, well, because of we're getting to fall, closed doors, and then in the fact that we have people now that are in schools and in bunches, even though we're trying to keep them apart as best we can, it's inevitable. Ask any teachers, they know of somebody who came or went or had it or does have it or is in the quarantine, getting out of quarantine, whatever the case may be. And, you guys are doing your best to stay away from anybody who may have it, because you can't work if you've been quarantined. So, and you're required to go talk to some people who you don't know where they've been. It's a different world out there. 384-2191, 384-2192. We'll wrap up our visit here, but you can join us yet if you have any questions or concerned about the Marshfield PD. AM 1450 WDLB's Insight program this second Friday in the month of October, coming to you from the studios here. You obviously know that if you're listening live, but you may be watching us from marshfieldmediaaccess.org and on channel 989 on your Charter Digital tier as we visit with Marshfield Police Department members here once a month on the Insight program, and most importantly, make them available to you as well to talk to. So I've noticed that the social media has really helped, I think, in your efforts to be able to put pictures out of suspects or lost people, or we even had a dementia patient that wandered off, and that has been something that the department has used rather successfully, I would think, right?
Right, and Lieutenant Keffer actually does an awesome job at keeping a lot of that up to date, and all of us lieutenants have access to the site to try to answer people's questions when they send them in and through messages, and you're right, it has been really successful for us. We've solved a lot of cases, thankfully to the people that keep an eye on it. We have, close to 30,000 followers, I think, which I'm not a Facebook guru, but I think that's pretty good for a department our size. And so when we do send something out, there's a lot of people looking at that, and that certainly proved to be helpful for us.
All right. Well, thank you for your time. Not a whole lot of big things to be talking about here, but we went through quite a few things that are timely this time of the year. Lieutenant Sheridan, Lieutenant Esser, thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
Sure. Here on today's Insight program on AM 1450 WDLB, I'm Jeff Cannon.